Hello and welcome. I'm Kenzie.
And I'm Carli, and this is Ask a Therapist.
Each week, we explore life's most relatable questions, from relationships and boundaries to burnout and self-worth, all through a therapist's lens.
We're licensed therapists, but this isn't therapy. It's a place for insight, reflection, and a little humor along the way.
Your questions,
our insights.
Ask a Therapist. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. The content shared should not be considered a substitute for professional mental health care, diagnosis, or treatment. We strongly encourage listeners to seek help from a licensed mental health professional for any personal or psychological concerns.
Any advice or commentary offered is based solely on the information provided. As such, we cannot guarantee any specific outcomes, and the feedback given should not be interpreted as professional mental health advice. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please call 911, 988, or 211.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ask a Therapist. This is episode 27. We are wishing everyone a happy Father's Day to those who are celebrating and thinking of those where this holiday might be a little bit difficult. This week, we have a letter from a dad who is feeling like he would like to be celebrated a little bit more on Father's Day, but doesn't know or feel completely comfortable asking for that. We want to share a quick reminder that while our questions are specific to listener submissions, the insight and responses we share are meant to be supportive and applicable to anyone who may be listening. We're excited to explore this with you all, so let's get started.
Yes, let's. But before we do, Kenzie, I know last week I had a chance to tell you about the absolute best dining experience that I've ever had, which happened to be in New Orleans. But it makes me curious about what would you say your best dining experience has been?
Yeah, okay. I am still thinking about your dining experience. It just sounded so fun.
You and me both. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my best dining experience. This is a fun fact about me, Carli. I don't know if you know this, but I feel like I must have talked about it at some point, but I love cooking competition shows. Okay, yeah. So that is like my jam. Maybe I've even talked about this before, but I love cooking competition shows, and there is a restaurant that essentially like mimics Chopped, and we went for I've only been once. I really want to go again, but I went for my birthday like 2 years ago. And they have two chefs that come in and they give them like a mystery basket full of ingredients, and they put a timer on, and they have like 30 minutes to make an appetizer, like 45 minutes to make an entree, and then 30 minutes to make a dessert. And they have to like use the mystery basket ingredients. Like they don't have to use them in every portion of the meal, but they have to be used at least once throughout the appetizer, entree, and dessert. And they have to be done by the certain time and like get it all plated up for everybody. And so you, as the person that's there that is enjoying this experience, you get 2 appetizers, 2 entrees, and 2 desserts, and you try them all. And then at the end, you get to vote for who you think had the better overall meal, and they get like a cash prize. But you're watching them cook the whole time. Like the timer is actually going on. The food was so good. It was such a cool experience. And like my dream. So I loved it.
That sounds amazing. And like a nice like mix of fun, but then like good dining. Yeah. And sounds like there's like a little bit an element of surprise there, right? Because you're having different dishes prepared. You don't necessarily know what exactly you're going to get or what they're going to come up with.
Yeah, it's so fun. And like it's just such a cool experience. And the competition part of it is like so up my alley. So.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything like that in Pittsburgh, at least not right now. But my next trip to Connecticut or New York or Philly, yes. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, yeah. If you come up here, let me know. I'll get the tickets early. We can go. We can try it out.
Perfect. I'm in. Count me in.
It can be a celebration for our, almost coming up on a year of doing this podcast. That would be so fun.
I know. That sounds crazy to say, but yeah, it absolutely could be. Yes.
Good. Okay. Well, we have a great question to jump into today. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you're struggling with anxiety, navigating life adjustments, or want better emotional regulation or communication tools, therapy can help. I'm Kenzie, a licensed professional counselor in Connecticut, offering virtual therapy services to individuals looking for meaningful change. I offer tailored therapeutic care to my clients, as well as an emphasis on a strong therapeutic relationship where you will feel safe to process and grow. Visit www.therapy-with-Kenzie, that's KENZIE.com, to learn more or schedule a consultation.
Okay, today's letter says, Hi, Kenzie and Carly. I'm writing because Father's Day is coming up and I'm already feeling that familiar mix of disappointment and guilt, and it hasn't even happened yet. Here's the situation. Every year I go all out for Mother's Day. I'm talking thoughtful gifts, helping the kids plan something meaningful, making sure the day actually feels special for my wife, not just another Sunday where she's still doing the mental load. Same goes for my own mom. I put in real effort because I want them to feel appreciated and celebrated. And then Father's Day rolls around and it's like an afterthought. I get a happy Father's Day, maybe a last minute card, sometimes something small that clearly wasn't planned ahead of time. The day itself usually just kind of happens. Maybe I get a meal I like and I'm left alone to watch whatever I want on TV. The thing is, my kids are 12 and 7. They're not toddlers anymore. They're absolutely capable of putting thought into something, especially with a little guidance. And my wife is more than capable. She just doesn't seem to prioritize it the same way I do. My own dad always downplayed Father's Day, saying, Don't make a fuss. But here's the truth. I want a fuss. Being an active, present dad is a lot of work, and I want to feel appreciated for it. Is that wrong to admit? I just don't know how to say it without coming off as needy or worse, like I'm keeping score. I don't want my wife to feel like I'm criticizing her or for my kids to feel like they need to repay me for being their dad. But I also don't want to keep pretending I'm fine with something that genuinely hurts my feelings every year. So, what would you suggest? Do I tell my family I want them to step their game up? Or is this just one of those things where I need to adjust my expectations? Thanks. What do you think, Kenzie?
I mean, my heart goes out to this listener listening to it. The familiar mix of disappointment and guilt was like one of the first lines where I was like, oh, this listener is really feeling disappointed. And I think understandably, there's a lot obviously that we're going to get into and that we're going to talk about. But I think something that came up for me when hearing this question was like, we do place such an emphasis on moms as parents, and the dad kind of saying like, it's being an active present dad is a lot of work and I want to feel appreciated for it. It's a super fair feeling to have, especially on this day where it is specifically for dads. They said, is that wrong to admit? And to me, that was such like a flashing, hold on, wait a second question, because I'm so curious around why that would be wrong to admit, to want to feel like your role as a dad, it's so important. It's such a big role to fill in a child's life, to be an active, involved parent. And I'm curious as to why the listener would say, is that wrong to admit? It sounds like maybe there's been some subliminal messaging around kind of like, maybe it's not manly or it's not like a dad's role to want to feel fussed over, or to want to have a celebration or that appreciation. So no, it absolutely is not wrong to admit. And this is my last like initial thought that I'll give, but I tell people this all the time with birthdays. Birthdays are always kind of something where people are like, it just didn't match expectations. It was just disappointing. And days like this, Mother's Day, Father's Day, you have to communicate what it is that you want out of these days. You cannot expect other people to know or anticipate what it is that you're looking for, because you will always be disappointed. And it is not too crazy or too much to ask for, hey, here's what I want to do. Here's what I want this day to look like. Here's what's important to me. That's being a good communicator. It's not asking too much. It's not expecting too much or making too much of a fuss. When you don't do that, you feel the resentment. And it sounds like this has been years of feeling kind of dismissed.
Yeah, well, everything that you said in terms of your initial reactions, I could relate to. I did feel, kind of sad for this listener when I read it. But if I'm honest, my initial reaction was, did my husband write in and try to like, in an underhanded way, tell me that? Because I think this is like a super common thing. And honestly, I felt a little guilty reading it, just because the truth is that I can relate to putting more effort into Mother's Day than I do Father's Day. And I think that
Yeah.
probably stems from, my own parents and things. I can relate to the dad who's like, "Oh, don't make a fuss. I don't want anything," and you kind of get used to that. Also, just traditionally, because women have taken more of the lead when it comes to child rearing, I think that's why they tend to get more like focus and appreciation and attention during Mother's Day. But this generation of dads, like millennial dads in particular, and I think it with every generation, like, becomes more and more involved. I know a lot of Gen X dads who are very, very involved, but, like, with every generation, that, like, shifts a little bit more, and obviously, there are other factors that contribute to that. You have more women working outside the home, and so there's more of, like, a split of those household responsibilities and parenting responsibilities. But it is one of those, like, kinda cliche things that, tends to come up, and I do think societally we're shifting, and there's nothing wrong with men or dads wanting more acknowledgement and appreciation for that, because he's right, it is a lot of hard work, and to ask that for one day you be acknowledged for that, I don't think is asking too much.
No, no, I don't either. I think that, like you're saying, just depending on how you grew up or what you think somebody like you might just kind of get into like routines or patterns as a family. His wife and kids might not have, I wouldn't take this as like they don't care, they don't appreciate. They genuinely might not know how you want to be appreciated or that this is
Sure.
important to you or that this means something to you. And so to this listener, I think that it makes total sense to kind of be like, hey, I know that traditionally in the past, this is how we've done it. Father's Day's coming up. Here's what I want to do this year. Here's what I'm excited about. Here's, where I want to go or what I want to do. I do think that having that conversation with your wife is probably an important one. They had mentioned my kids are 12 and 7. And while older, yes, they are in like a prime stage in life where like it's all about them. Like they're not necessarily going to go out of their way to be like, oh, let's think about dad or mom and what they want and what they would be excited about if given the opportunity to like stay home and play games or talk to their friends or whatever. They're going to choose that 10 out of 10 times. They're kids. So having that conversation with your wife or setting the expectations with your wife and with your kids and kind of being like, here's what I want, not putting it on them necessarily to plan or, not definitely not putting it on the kids to plan, but also not being like, I want to celebrate more, but not really giving them any guidelines around how you want to do that. Like being a little bit more specific about here's what I think would be fun. Here's what I would love to do. You don't have to make the reservations or, do all the cooking or anything like that. But giving a little bit of guidelines around kind of like, here's what my ideal day would look like. Here's what I want to be in control of or in charge of. Here's what I don't want to be in control of or in charge of. And this means a lot to me. I want it to be a day that I get to spend with my family and get to have these moments and these memories and feel all the feelings that come up with this holiday.
Yeah, so you touched on two things that I want to just highlight. One being, it was not clear to me in this letter how much of this has been communicated to his wife and kids, right? He did mention that his dad always said, don't make a fuss. I don't know if he said, don't make a fuss, or if that's just kind of been the assumption and he's never countered it, right? So that was definitely one of the first things was like, have you attempted to communicate this? And if so, like, what have those conversations like? Don't think that, to your point, we can assume that people should know how to show up for us if we're not willing to like offer some sort of feedback or guidance on that. People are not mind readers. Even when you show someone through your actions, like I hear him saying, for Mother's Day, I do these things. We can't assume that that's going to translate to he wants the same thing done in return. And so this comes up so much with couples of like, if I have to tell the person to do it, then like almost like I don't want it, like I shouldn't have to tell you. But there is there's love in someone being able to do something because you asked. Like one way to look at it is like, why wouldn't they think of it on their own? But another way to look at it is if they didn't think of it on their own and I brought it to their attention and they're willing to make the adjustment, isn't that like an ultimate expression of love and care is like you will go outside of something that you might typically do for the other person. And so Just the
Yeah.
idea that he would have to ask, I kind of want to reframe that from a negative to like it's an opportunity for you to kind of show or teach your family how you would like them to show up for you. And if they can kind of meet that challenge, that can even strengthen the bond, right? Because everything isn't always just like naturally perfect. Sometimes we have to work at it. And the fact that we're willing to work at it is the expression of love, you know?
Can I
Go ahead,
jump
were you
in
about to
really
say
quick
s
on that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
please.
because I love that. It's such a good reframe. I'm so happy that you said that. I'm gonna use that. Something that comes up so often in individual therapy that I do with people is if I have to ask for it, it won't mean as much.
Yeah,
And that is always something that people say that they feel of kind of like, I don't wanna have to tell them how I want them to show up for me, or I don't wanna have to tell them that I want them to do this for me because it's not going to feel the same as if they just did it. And that's one of the biggest things that I always push back on with clients because you can't expect people to be mind readers, and you are the one who ends up disappointed. They are oblivious. They have no idea what you might be thinking or what you might be feeling because everybody's thinking about themselves and what's going on for them. And so it's not that it means less. And so often what happens is people will finally kind of like say it and be like, hey, this hurt me, or hey, I really would appreciate it if you did this. And then people will say or do the thing that they were hoping that they were going to. And they're like, no, it actually did feel nice to have them acknowledge it or to say it. It really didn't mean less having to ask for it. That is a part of life. You're going to have to tell people and be honest with people. It is an act of love of being able to say like, not getting defensive around it, not getting upset around it, being able to communicate what you need or what you want from somebody and teaching them how to love you in the way that you would like to. It strengthens a relationship, it strengthens a bond. It doesn't make it less meaningful. And so just kind of putting that out there. I'm glad that you said that and mentioned it.
absolutely, absolutely. I think the other, piece that you mentioned was the age of the kids. I agree, they're not quite at an age where I think it's fair to expect them to fully lead in terms of, developing whatever the Father's Day plans are gonna be, but they are at an age where the way that the parents respond to things teaches them, like, what level of importance and what value we place on things, and so, the listener is saying for Mother's Day, like, "I go all out," and I'm sure that the children see that, like, they have some understanding of Mother's Day, is taken seriously, these are the things that we do on Mother's Day. I don't know. He didn't necessarily mention how involved the kids are in his plans for the wife, but we teach children things about what's important and value based on what we value and how we respond to things. So I do think they're at an age where if, mom or the other people in their life kind of downplay Father's Day, it is sending a message that Father's Day isn't quite of the same level of importance. And so I think this is something I agree. It's a conversation with the wife. It is also maybe a conversation with the kids, but I'm thinking of it as like, how do the wife and kids kind of work together to make sure they're conveying to the children like the value that they want to be placed on, and not just Father's Day, because that's like a holiday, but the importance of expressing appreciation and acknowledgement toward their dad for the things that he
Yeah.
does do. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think it may be up to the wife to kind of take the lead there, at least in guiding the children on what they could maybe do. So maybe that is having the kids help with cooking a meal. I also don't know the wife's relationship with her father, but it also made me curious about that. Like, if she experienced the same kind of downplaying, or if it's possible she had a different or conflictual relationship with her dad, how that might influence how she approaches
Yeah.
Father's Day. So it just made me
Sure.
curious about a lot of the like kind of context around it, so that you
Sure.
can really approach a conversation with your wife about like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I would like more of. And then hopefully she can take the lead in guiding the children to then, adopt that same value.
Yeah. Yeah. Carly, what are your thoughts? Because I am really curious. That question just does keep coming back up for me of like, is it wrong to admit that I want to be celebrated on Father's Day? What are your thoughts around? I like what you mentioned at the beginning of like, there are a lot of dads in this generation that are much more active and present in their kids' lives, but maybe there is still this feeling of like, oh, but like I can't, maybe it's wrong for me to want to be celebrated in this way on Father's Day. What are your thoughts just around that question and how you would address that with this listener and other dads who are maybe feeling the same way, but don't, but maybe feel weird about being like, celebrate me, or like, because women
Yeah.
really don't like. Mother's Day is a day for women to kind of be like, you're going to celebrate me. Here's what I want. This is what, do not wake me up until I wake up naturally. Like, women really don't have as much of a problem of kind of saying, I want to be celebrated on this day. And it may not feel as comfortable for dads to say that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when I heard the question, my answer is, of course, it's not, wrong
Mhm.
to admit that you want more acknowledgement. But I do understand the listeners kind of maybe hang up on how that will be perceived. And I think it's a lot of the things that you're saying, like as women and men, we're conditioned differently societally. There are certain expectations that are placed on men versus women. And I don't wanna make it a man versus woman thing. I think we have our own hardships and challenges, and it's not to compare them. But one area where men really aren't given a whole lot of leeway is in, like, emotional expression. I've heard people say men are
Mhm.
allowed to be, like, angry or fine. Nuance of, like, "Well, actually, I'm feeling, like, a little sad, but a little bit." These are just not things that we really teach young boys, teenagers, to adult men to express and to feel comfortable expressing. We also
Yeah,
have a lot of messaging in like television and media. It's kind of fair game to poke fun at the dad. And like if you think about a lot of like dad characters on TV,
yeah,
sometimes they're kind of like aloof or we make fun of them being like the silly, goofy dad or almost like the dumb dad. Like there's a lot of messaging around
sure,
the dad figure that isn't
sure,
exactly positive or like encouraging to
sure.
men. So I really do understand why he's questioning even the ability to bring it up. He's saying, I don't want to seem needy. He doesn't want to
Yeah,
seem like a pest or like, hey, everybody celebrate me, but he wants to be acknowledged. So I very much understand why he feels hesitant about it. He also mentioned the keeping score aspect of I don't want
mhm,
it to feel like it's a tick for tack, but he's still a human being. Having needs is a part of being a human. So there's nothing like wrong with that. Obviously, communicating them, I don't know if he feels like he has the tools to effectively communicate it because if it's not something he's practiced in and it's not something that he has
yeah,
a whole lot of examples of, right? Then, like,
sure,
how do you broach this topic? And so it makes me just want to kind of offer some ways to bring up the discussion in case he's feeling like, I don't even know where to begin with this. And I think
yeah,
it can be a very, light, you don't have to bring it up as if it's so fraught with emotion, even if you feel strongly about it, you can kind of sit down with your wife and say, babe, I really, really hope you enjoyed your Mother's Day. Like I put a lot of effort and intention into it. And I would appreciate that effort being reciprocated, and like you said, to provide some examples of what would land well with him, I think can be
mhm,
helpful. But I do
mhm.
get it. I think that we expect men to be emotionally sensitive to our needs as women, but to completely like bottle up and handle their own emotions as men. And it's not fair or realistic.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that a good, you don't have to apologize. I love the framework that you put, Carly, of like you're human, you have emotional needs. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think for us, just kind of reassuring you, like, of course, this is not wrong. You can ask for this no matter what. But if a helpful reframe for you is kind of like what you're asking for is genuine connection and love and experiences with your family. You don't have to apologize for that. And also you're setting a great example for your kids of kind of like we love and appreciate both of our parents. Like that is something that is important. We value the father role and we're going to use this day to celebrate that and appreciate all that dad gives to this family. Like It is not something to feel bad about, to apologize for, to feel like that's too much. So recognizing that you're creating moments, experiences, memories with your family. You're also modeling and valuing a really important role and the importance of that role. That is such a positive. And you also might be modeling that, like, yes, you are a male, you're a dad, and you also have emotional needs. And your kids should see that too. And it's not just kind of like, oh, I'm either angry or I'm fine or I'm tough or I'm whatever it is. You're human and you want to have fun. You want to be celebrated. You want to enjoy as well. Maybe you feel emotional around your role as a dad. That's a beautiful thing. It's okay to feel that. It's okay to express that. And there's no reason or need to feel worried about expressing it, to feel needy. It's not a needy ask. It's not a tit for tat. You're just wanting something, and so feeling the confidence of expressing that without feeling like, "Oh, is this too much?" It's not.
Yeah, well, it's not too much, but I do understand his angst around bringing it up, because I don't
Sure.
know how it will be received by his wife, in fairness. And like, in other words, it's possible that some of that fear isn't just coming from nowhere. Again, we don't
Uh-huh,
know if
uh-huh.
he's attempted to bring this up, and especially if
Sure.
he has and it wasn't necessarily received well, then of course that's only going to add to the angst around it. But
Yeah.
to everything that you said, I would agree. I think it's good to teach your children that, sometimes it's important to prioritize other people and their needs and not only your own. Of course, we have to teach
Yeah.
our children to, address their own needs and be on their own team
Sure.
and all of these things. But it's also okay to teach them that not everything is about them all the time. And sometimes we
Mhm.
do things
Mhm.
whether we want to do them or not because it's about another person. It's about celebrating dad in the way that he wants to be celebrated. So
Sure.
maybe I don't know, interested in golf, but if dad wants us to go play golf for his birthday, I mean, for Father's Day, and that's what he's into, then yeah, you're going to sacrifice this time and it may not be your preferred
Uh-huh.
activity, but we're going to do it because it's something dad enjoys and he deserves some attention as well. Just like when
Uh-huh.
it's your birthday or your special day, we prioritize you. So I think there's like
Yeah.
opportunity for learning for like everyone in here. And I so
Yeah.
appreciate this question and kind of like all the questions we've been getting from men. Like that's not lost on
Yeah.
me how many of the questions
Yeah.
have been from men and from the male perspective. I know that as two
Yeah.
women, like we clearly there's some aspects of that where we can't fully relate, but I do
Sure.
appreciate the acknowledgement of like this is different for we experience it differently than how they do. And sometimes as women, we can forget that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the reminder as well. It's making me rethink Father's Day this year and, my own dad and my husband and things like that. So,
I agree, and that is a very good point to bring up. And I really like the perspective of like not everything is all about us. Like teaching your kids that sometimes we have to be open and receptive and respectful to what other people want to do too, even if that's your parents. Because I think sometimes like kids they'll do that for their friends or for other people, but then for their parents they'll be like, I don't want to, like, all this kind of stuff, and, like, for the dad to know too, even if you get some pushback maybe, like, it's still okay to kind of say, "Well, actually, it's also teaching my kids a little bit of a lesson here too, that will help them in life."
yeah. Yeah, for sure. They didn't say he didn't say his children's gender, but it does make me wonder if any of
Right.
them are boys. Remember
Right.
just like he talked about his dad being the kind of like don't make a fuss. Like it's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
teaching them something. And so I just imagine if
Yeah.
one or both were boys, like remember that they could potentially be a father one day. And so you're
Mhm.
kind of even modeling for them what it might look like to ask for what they need or that, that is
Mhm.
a role that is celebrated and should be celebrated. But even if they're girls, it's also teaching them something, about that, about
Mhm.
how they may want to honor their future, spouse or what have you, or
Yeah.
just the importance of honoring their own dad. So again, everything is like cyclical because on one hand it may feel kind of scary and daunting to bring up the topic, but I think there's like real opportunity for growth and like a benefit to everyone involved, a benefit
Yeah.
to the marital connection, a benefit
Yeah.
to the children and learning like values and learning to prioritize someone else, a benefit to the family unit, and then a benefit to the listener in actually getting the level of acknowledgement and appreciation that he's seeking. And so I think
Yeah.
that he has a real opportunity here. He may feel like it's a little unfair that it's placed in his lap to initiate it,
Sure.
but I think there's a real
Sure.
opportunity here for everyone to grow as a result if he can have the courage to, go for it and not
Yeah.
be afraid to say, I'm looking for a little bit more here, guys.
Love it. I think that is, I think it's spot on. And, I'm excited for this listener. I hope that he is able to kind of take this and plan for it and use this as a little bit of a motivation or a boost to communicate what he's feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And shout out to the dads. I mean, I know
I
some
know.
really, really, really great dads. I have been so fortunate to have some really exceptional men in my life, like in my personal life, my dad, my husband's family, my in laws. Like, there are some really, really exceptional dads out there, and we want you to feel
Yeah.
acknowledged because you absolutely deserve it. So happy Father's Day to all of the
Yeah.
men, the fathers, the father figures, the people who step in even when they're maybe not the biological father, but the stepdads and the uncles and the coaches and the mentors and the pastors. And I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on. And we really do value that. So happy Father's Day.
Yes, happy Father's Day. It's such an important role. It makes such a difference and it's not always easy. So definitely see you and appreciate you and you are making lives better by the love and the care that you provide. So happy Father's Day.
If you'd like to hear our thoughts on a topic that matters to you, email your question to info@askatherapistpod.com. We'd also like to hear your thoughts on today's topic. What resonated, what didn't, and what did we miss? If you have advice for our listener, please share it. You may just hear your feedback on a future episode. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at askatherapist_pod. Emails and DMs are always welcome. Also, if you'd like to connect with me or Kenzie and learn more about the services we offer in our private practices, check the show notes for ways to reach us directly. With that, we're signing off. Thanks for listening, and remember, don't wing it, just ask a therapist.
That's it for today's episode. We hope it gave you something to reflect on, or maybe even that aha moment.
If so, you know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe, and don't forget to text it to the group chat. Remember, sharing is caring.
If you have a question you want us to tackle, big or small, we want to hear it.
Email us at info@askatherapistpod.com or slide into our DMs on Instagram at askatherapist_pod.
You bring the questions.
We'll bring the insight and probably a metaphor or two.
This is Ask a Therapist.